The Buddha said that life is suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. Desire grows from attachment. And therefore, the way to break free from suffering is to practice detachment. Now, while I do not follow the celibate path of the monk as laid down by the Buddha, I have tremendous respect for Buddhism. And this phrase contains one of the keys to understanding why mindfulness has such healing powers, as has now been proven by hundreds of double-blind, peer-reviewed academic research studies. Of course, this is actually something that these researchers shy away from, the connection between mindfulness and detachment. In order for me to be mindful of my hand, I actually have to inwardly step back from my hand in order to observe it. In order to be mindful of my body as one organic whole, I have to be able to detach and step back from my body in order to observe it. Now, I believe that this is one, and just one, of the reasons that mindfulness has been found to be so healing. Because it is our ability to detach from the surface of our life, to separate ourself from ourself, that allows us to gain depth and perspective and perceive not only ourselves, but things and events in our life more objectively. If I am caught up in the pain in my lower back, if I wallow in subjective misery, I really intensify this pain by giving it far too much energy. And not only do I intensify this pain by being so attached to it, I also empower my ego, that subjective me, why me part of my being. But when I stop and detach from the pain, that is, take an inward step back and become mindful of it, this is like placing a wedge between me and my pain. And over time, with practice, this wedge is able to grow and allow me to experience life more objectively. So if I can step back and become mindful of my body, and please try to follow along, because this is a profound inner exercise. So when I become mindful of my body from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, when I become mindful of the posture of my body and the position of my body in space, when I become mindful of my body as one organic whole and mindful of my whole body breathing, I inwardly detach from my body and step back in order to perceive it. And this is why those scientists and researchers do not really like to think about this, because this is where it merges with mysticism. Because if I can be mindful of my thoughts and mindful of my body and mindful of my feelings, if I can inwardly detach from these three dimensions of my being, then who or what am I? And where am I detaching to? Many names have been used, but my three favorite are the witness, the observer, and stepping back into consciousness itself. Mindfulness is like a light, and I can shine this mindful light on the words in my mind or my hand or my feelings. And this is what we should do at the beginning, when we are first learning to be mindful. But the more we practice mindfulness, the more we engage in this inward detachment, the more we are able to be aware of the source of this illumination, or aware that there is a witness within us that is witnessing everything. Now imagine a wild horse, and you have a single cowboy with a lasso, and he manages to throw it around the neck of the horse. The horse cannot run away, but it can move wildly from side to side and even trample the cowboy. And then imagine a second cowboy appearing and lassoing the horse. The horse's room to maneuver becomes much more limited, but two cowboys are not enough to keep it still. For that, a third cowboy is needed. And this is kind of like a reverse image metaphor. To be mindful of our head brain, to be mindful of the words and pictures in our mind, or to be mindful of our head-brain perceptions, that is, mindful of what we can see, hear, smell, and taste, is like a single cowboy. But to be mindful of our head brain, our body brain, and our feeling brain, to be mindful, and here I am going back to the proper form and sequence for mindfulness, as discussed in my last video. And again, this is a profound inner exercise, and so please try to follow along with it, of consciously looking, listening, smelling, and tasting while, and the word while is important because these can happen simultaneously, while sensing our body as one organic whole and being mindful of our head brain and body brain perceptions, while also at the same time mindfully breathing a tiny dollop of joy up from our duodenum below our stomach, up through our stomach, lungs, heart, throat, jaw, mouth, and face, and right into our eyes, to consciously look, listen, smell, and taste, while sensing our body as one organic whole, while breathing up a dollop of mindful joy, if done properly and enough times, and I am talking at least tens of thousands of times, because going back to my previous video, something has to coalesce or crystallize within our being. We will pull the witness, the observer, consciousness, the Purusha, our real I, out of hiding and bring it to central prominence within our being. And this is true spiritual awakening, the awakening of the witness within us. Of course, until the witness fully emerges, keep in mind that it lies hidden behind and is an essential component in every act of mindfulness we perform, something I will discuss more fully in the next video on the alchemy of mindfulness.
Healing mind, body, and feelings. The Toronto hypnotherapist.